Hello and welcome to yet another edition of The Right Perspective. Namaste, I'm Anand Narasimhan. Ladies and gentlemen, when we have assets and if there is an opportunity to monetize them so that those earnings can be plowed back towards development, should or should not a nation consider it? Prime Minister Narendra Modi has continuously talked about minimum government, maximum governance, and also the exit of the government from wherever possible and more inclusion, participation of the private sector and private entity. What is this NMP or the National Monetization Pipeline all about? It takes off with the aim to monetize assets worth about 6 lakh crore between 2021 and 2025. Now, how it will work, it's been identified that national properties will be leased out for a period of 4 years, revenue to be invested in new infrastructure projects, assets to be utilized under public-private route to be leased. Now, the top 5 among all of this is roads, railways, you have the power sector, oil and gas pipelines, and of course, telecom. These top 5 account for about 83% of the pipeline value. Multifaceted benefits also are there to be talked about and to consider. Biggest potential gainers are the power sector, road, infra. Then it also brings in huge private sector investment into infrastructure, pushes new tech, digitalization, and of course innovation, creates so many more avenues for jobs, shores up economic growth, and generates massive employment potential. To put matters in the perspective today, we have with us Sunil Alagh and also Sanju Verma. Sanju Verma, along with being a national spokesperson of the BJP, is also a very active and a very vocal proponent of Modinomics. But Sunil ji, let me start with you. As somebody who's talked about private equity, who's looking at investments, who's also somebody who's pushed for growth and more opening up of this infrastructure sector, would you buy into the opposition's argument led by Rahul Gandhi that this is pawning off national assets, our crown jewels, देश को बेचने का काम कर रही है मोदी सरकार? Is that the right perspective?
No, I don't think it's the right perspective at all, because at the end of the day, almost all governments over the last 20 years, whether it's Congress or anyone, wanted to get out of various sectors and thought that private sector would be the best. It's just because Modi government has decided to do it now, because if they don't do it now, where they need the funds almost in the next 3 years to tackle COVID, they are giving a lot of money to the poor, and they need that money. And therefore, the question is that if this is not followed, then the taxes will come on us, that they will have to raise taxes because the government just cannot keep spending the money. And private sector is known on roads, railways. When the private Britannia, for instance, the biscuit in Bombay, the biscuit factory was situated in a land which was leased to them by the Port Trust in Bombay. So if the government is leasing it out to the private sector, it's much better utilization of what is there, and they will create far more funds for themselves. The government is going to put more money back into infrastructure, into roads, into railways. All that we have to be careful about is that whenever you are giving it out, you have to make sure that the laws ensure at least 3 players in each segment. They cannot go into a monopoly situation, which is what I've said right in the beginning, that the laws in monopolies and all have to be followed by the government in terms of governance. But then it's not their business to be in business at all. And this is something that the Modi government has stated for the last 8 years. It's just that they are doing it now. So and even the Congress has said that it's not their business to be in business. So we are not a state which Nehru began as a socialist state or a communist state, where the state takes care of everything. It's fallen apart all over the world. So what are they objecting to? I haven't quite understood as yet, because this is required. This is going to create more efficiencies, it's going to create more jobs, more productivity, and the private sector is bound to come in and do a much better job.
Right. Sanju Verma.
Anand, a couple of things here. First and foremost, let us understand that when you talk about asset monetization, which is what the Modi government plans to do via the National Monetization Pipeline, as Sunil Alagh mentioned, asset monetization only means leasing an asset for a specified period to a private entity, and after the specified period is over, the private entity will give back the asset to the government. Right. So let's be very clear for the benefit of your viewers that asset monetization does not mean that the government gives up control or that the government gives up ownership of the concerned assets. Point number one. And something which I think, people like Rahul Gandhi and many people in the opposition who have, protested against the government's national monetization pipeline need to know is that there is a basic difference between asset monetization and disinvestment. There is also a difference between asset monetization and privatization. I'll just quickly tell you. In the case of disinvestment, when we talk of disinvestment, basically we are saying that the government will sell less than 50% of its stake in a public company to a private entity. And what is privatization? Privatization is when the government decides to offload more than 50% stake to a private entity. But in the case of asset monetization, we are not talking of offloading any stake by the government. We are simply saying that the government will lease assets maybe for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, what have you.
Right.
Now, the question that is asked is, why is there a need to even undertake asset monetization? The simple answer to that is, world over, including in India, banks are wary to lend to the infrastructure sector for one basic reason. Most infrastructure projects, even globally, they could take 5 years. At times, they even take 10 years or more. Now, banks are not willing to lend for beyond 5 years because interest rate scenario globally and even domestically, can change at the drop of a hat because it's a function of various derivatives. And given that interest rate scenario is something which no banker can call, whether interest rates will go down, go up, how do you expect a banker or a bank to lend to an infrastructure project which might take 5 or more years to be completed? Hence, any country, whether it is capital starved or not, is not the question. To ensure that the balance sheets of banks are not adversely impacted, usually the global best practice is that you fund infrastructure projects which require long-term capital via asset monetization. Banks are willing to lend to projects ideally which have a duration of 3 years. They'll be completed in 3 years. I'll give you a small example. The Navi Mumbai airport, the initial foundation stone of this airport was laid way back in 1997. And it was said that this project will be completed in maximum 3 to 4 years at a cost of barely 2 or 3,000 odd crores. And can you imagine, after so many years, the Navi Mumbai airport has still not been completed. In fact, it was only as recently as 2018 that Prime Minister Narendra Modi laid the foundation stone once again and flagged off the project. And now the project will see the light of the day by 2024 or 2025. But in the meanwhile, the cost has escalated to about 15 or 16,000 crores.
Correct.
So this is a classic example where the Congress was in power in Maharashtra in 1997. The Congress was also calling the shots, otherwise as well at the central level as well. But because there was shortage of capital, banks were unwilling to lend, there were bureaucratic delays, there was, politicization. We never saw the Navi Mumbai project taking off. If the government decides to monetize an oil pipeline or a railroad or a highway, all it is telling the private sector is, let us have some kind of a partnership. The monetization will basically be done, Anand, through 3 different, measures. One will be the PPP, public-private partnership model, point number 1. Second, it may be done through the BOT, build, operate, transfer model.
Yeah.
And third, it may be done through the TOT, toll, operate, transfer model. Now, be it PPP, be it BOT, or be it TOT, in all these models, the private sector entity gains by generating decent cash flows. The government is able to mobilize resources. It is a win-win situation for the government and the private sector without the government engaging in any form of fire sale or distress sale and without the government ceding ownership. So I think it's a great move.
Right. Now, please yield, Sanju Verma. The fact is, Sunil Alagh, one of the aspects which also remain a concern when you are encouraging private investment is red tape. is also contracts drafting and also dispute resolution. These are 3-4 aspects which come as Gatirod or hurdles to this entire Gati Shakti initiative.
Look, I mean, Dilbert has said that every time you find the cartoon which comes out, and I love his line which says that every time you find the key to success, opposition will always change the lock. So look, ultimately we are anticipating a number of problems. When you lease an quantity 5 years, 10 years or whatever, there is a clause in it which says there's a clause for renewal. Again, you might lease it again to the party that is very successful because they want to keep on having it. You increase your cost, you increase the price that is there. So the government again gets an opportunity to monetize its assets at the end of the period. And normally when you do the period, you say it takes so many years to build a road. Now you take the C-Link, okay? Now the rate has gone up. I think the toll over there has gone up and it's run, I think, privately. But the toll has gone. Nobody is complaining because somehow the road that has been made on the C-Link, it weathers the monsoons, it weathers everything, and there's never a pothole. Yet, when the Bombay Municipal Corporation builds on roads, every year you've got to keep spending money. If they privatize everything, the private party will want to do it once and for all and earn. And nobody has any problems in paying a toll if the comfort is there. Look, I mean, why are we creating issues which may happen rather than saying, let's try it out, let's move forward. If it is not happening, you can build it into the contract and say, look, at the end of 5 years, they're going to review it and they're going to take it back if you're not doing a good job, if the private party is not doing the job which was set out to.
Correct.
And that's when I said that, look, you can put in certain clauses into the leasing if you want. Again, you must make sure that no monopoly takes place in any one of these areas. Otherwise, the consumer is going to lose out. And the main thing is, if you give money to the government, your taxes are not likely to be raised. Without that money, I am telling you, the government has no option but to raise all the taxes on all of us.
Correct. Well, so you have the Netagiri, the Babugiri, all of that comes down, the red tape comes down, this Hobena, Cholbena culture will also come down, strikes, union bazi, all of that will come down. Those who want to work, those who want to invest and harvest, those who want to, work towards the growth of the country and also profit from it, well, that is perhaps a model that we need as a nation at this point. There are others. If you look at China itself, so many provinces today are in the red because they have drawn up to about 100 times their GDP, or some of them 70 to 80% or 100% of their own GDP, and their infrastructure projects are all crumbling. All of this state-backed. And these are all issues which are real issues which everybody is going to face across the world. Sanju Verma and Sunil Alagh, thank you very, very much for joining us and putting matters in perspective. The National Monetization Pipeline is towards building a brighter, stronger, secure Bharat and also generating perhaps more employment and more opportunity all across, ladies and gentlemen. Vice Chairman Niti Aayog, Rajiv Ji, namaste. Thank you very, very much for speaking to us. My first question to you, sir, is 6 lakh crore. That's the aim of the National Monetization Pipeline, a very ambitious project. But what's the thought process behind this?
Anand, the thought process twofold principally, and there are others. One is that our infrastructure needs as much resources as it can get. We have the government has formulated a national infrastructure pipeline which talks about 100 lakh crores for the next 5 years. And these resources have to be procured, have to be mobilized for our infrastructure to be world class. And the point about the infrastructure is that time and again we see that the infrastructure deficit has come in the way of our firms becoming globally competitive. They have to pay far more costs, higher costs for the infrastructure, whether it's energy or it's transport or its communication. So if India wants to become globally competitive, which it must be, and have and raise its share in the global market, it has to overcome its infrastructure deficit. And for that, we need to mobilize all the resources. These are not available from the budget because budget is all the other priorities of education and health and so on. So the thought is that if we can mobilize resources from monetizing assets, which the government has already built and which are, where the value is locked, and so we unlock that value and release those resources to be plowed back into the structure.
Let me ask you this, Rajiv Ji. roads, oil and gas pipelines, I mean, railways, these are, and even telecom, these account for about 83% of this entire pipeline and the revenue that you want to raise from it. But the criticism is that national assets are being sold away, they're being pawned.
But that's completely misinformed. That's totally that's misleading. That's based on on conscious dishonesty, if I might say, use the word, because the Honorable Finance Minister went out of her way to point out that these assets are not being sold, that the ownership will remain with the government, and the ownership will remain, and that at the end of the contract period, these assets will be mandatorily handed back to the government. So I mean, I don't know where this is coming from. That about the sale and hiving off and selling all the family jewels and what has been constructed over 7 decades being sort of given away or handed over. I think this is I'm really quite pained actually to see somebody even like the former finance minister making those statements, because he knows much better than that what he's been saying.
But some of the arguments are with regard to building warehouses, say that is going to be privatized. So Kisan, you have to be watch out, because you know who the warehouses will go to. These are the kind of words that are being used. Youth, you will not have jobs. वो भी आपसे छीन लिया जाएगा.
I mean, if we construct, if we use the present space where an old warehouse exists to double or triple its capacity, which will make this available to the farmers at a better rate, because it will have a higher capacity and the farmers would have more space to have their good stock there. And if the FCI gets better warehouses so that it doesn't have to stock food grain in open silo where it gets it spoils and uses these warehouses, where is the problem? And on the job front, very clearly, if, as I said earlier, if you invest more in infrastructure, more jobs are created in that sector, but also downstream.
Correct.
Because that's where these infrastructure, the companies will use this infrastructure, and to make to ramp up their capacity, ramp up their exports, ramp up their production, and jobs will come this way. Where is the question of jobs jobs being taken away?
Let's look at it from the investor point of view कि इस गति शक्ति मॉडल में कई सारे गतिरोध भी हैं. So that's the concern. Dispute resolution, contract framing, red tapeism. Will the line ministries come in play?
Well, you're absolutely, you hit the nail on the head that the focus, that the real challenge is on efficient execution and implementation of this program, and there that's why we've started this with a lot of homework. It's all been all the line ministries which are mentioned there, which were in the program, are on board. They've been taken on board. They've all accepted, in fact, given their targets by themselves.
Right.
This is why they were all present at the press conference where it was held. So the first part about this fear that there'll be a pushback from the line ministries, etc., as you can see, has pretty much been overcome. Now, about the red tape and about the processes and about the sort of complexity, this government has been in the business of simplifying all that. The Honorable Prime Minister in his 15th August speech said that the government's focus is on reducing regulatory and compliance burdens, is on simplifying and rationalizing the governance processes, and is also on doing away with all the redundant and irrelevant laws and statutes that we've got in our books for the last 70 years.
Just want to ask you this: how confident are you of this taking off, and what's the initial response been?
I'm amazed at the initial response. I mean, I don't want to name it, but I got an email yesterday, WhatsApp message yesterday itself from one of our ambassadors in the Middle East saying, Kuwar, can you send us soft copies of the documentation, because the sovereign wealth fund of that country has already expressed interest in these projects. Now, Anand, you should understand that there's a lot of liquidity in the world today. It's flush. And there are a lot of people, there are a lot of pension funds and sovereign wealth funds who are looking for steady but long-term returns, from projects. And they are at the moment, their monies are earning 1-2% in return. And on these, they will earn at least 5, 6, 7, whatever percent. So it's very attractive for them. Long, patient investment which yields return over the next 20, 30 years is something that everybody is looking for. So the response has been quite amazing. So which is the basis for my optimism that both within the domestic, from the domestic investors as well as from the international investors, we will get significant response to these, and I think you will see a lot of action, and I'm quite hopeful that the target of about 88,000 crore for this year will be met. Although we know that almost half of the year is gone, but I think we will achieve that. And then as we ramp up going forward, most of these targets should be achieved.
With that, it's a wrap of this edition of The Right Perspective. Thank you for watching. Namaste.